Hi there. Thanks for joining today for the next interview in the series for dog owners that will help you discover the secrets of dog experts and transform your connection and create the bond you've always wanted with your dog. Today, I have Michelle Stern here. She is a professional dog behavior consultant, but not only that, she has a wonderful experience, history as a mother and a teacher, which add to her amazing experience. She works with families and families with expecting babies. I love that part. And has a Pooch parenting program, among other things. Thank you so much for joining me today, Michelle.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Pooch parenting, what a great name, because I don't know, to me, they are kind of my kids. I admit it.
A lot of people feel that way as well. Yes.
Yeah. So, I would love to hear how you got into this, how you started getting into looking at the whole family as being so important to the dog.
Yeah, I kind of feel like my whole life up until now has led up to this moment. So it's pretty interesting when you look back in retrospect of all of your previous experiences and see how they all kind of weave together to create where you are now. And I feel like I've come home, which is a really, really neat thing. So my whole childhood, I wanted to be a veterinarian. So animals were my life as a kid, leading up even to the choices I made and the major that I had at college. I was going to study to become a veterinarian. Well, organic chemistry got the better of me, and I realized that I may not really have the academic prowess that was required to go to vet school. So I ended up shifting, and I studied animal behavior and behavioral ecology. So my favorite thing was to look at animals behaving as they normally would. So I studied elephant seals in the wild. And then after college, I went to an island off the coast of Puerto Rico and studied monkey mating behavior for several months, and realized pretty quickly that just the animal behavior piece of it alone it didn't fill my cup enough. It was too lonely. It was hard to be by yourself. I mean, it was cool to hang out with wild animals, but it wasn't enough for me. And so I ended up going back to school to become a high school biology teacher. So I did that, and my goal biology. I had the best time. So my goal was to try to get people fired up, and my passion, my secret agenda was to help people feel good about, protecting the environment and the animals and creatures and plants and stuff that lived within it. In the meantime, I taught for several years. I had kids. I have a biological daughter, and we adopted a son. And so I took a break from teaching, started raising my kids, was hankering for something else to do, ended up starting a cooking school for kids. I ran that for 8 years, went back to teaching. And, but all along the way, animals were part of my life. I had all kinds of animal jobs growing up. And then a good friend of mine got a dog who was a problem child. And we were talking, and we ended up connecting her to my childhood kind of idol, who became my mentor. And because of her dog who had a problem, I reconnected with my mentor and started taking classes that she was offering. And it just sucked me right back in. And I thought, you know what? This is perfect, because I'm really good at people, because I taught 150 teenagers a day for 8 years, right? So I love they're hilarious. Teenagers are great. They're unpredictable, but they're funny, and they're sensitive, and they're smart. And you have to be really creative at how you get them to see the world. And children are the same, right? Teenagers are just big kids often. And then I worked with little kids when I had my cooking school for kids. I mean, I cooked with 2-year-olds, right? So that was potentially dangerous. And I was really good at multitasking and sort of saying, okay, how do we deal with kids with knives and hot things? And it turns out that little kids and puppies are very similar to little kids and cooking, right? Because there's danger everywhere that people may or may not see. And you have to get the kids to do what you want them to do without focusing on what you don't want them to do, right? That has so much to do with dog training. Anyway, so working with my mentor and realizing that I still had this huge passion for dogs, I thought, God, my experience as a teacher to communicate with the families with dogs, my experience as a mom, right? I know what it's like to feel totally overwhelmed and live in this chaotic environment. Things are never predictable, especially when there's a dog and a toddler in the house. And so I essentially brought all of these pieces together and realized that in the dog training world, when you could be a jack of all trades, you know, I would rather have a niche that took advantage of all these prior skills. And so I decided to sort of become what I call a family dog specialist, where I can support parents who are expecting children, who are adopting children, who want to get the dog ready for those kids to join their family, or who it really helps to have my experience with kids of different ages, because then I can warn parents of different developmental stages that might be really tricky for their dog that they may not have thought of before. And on the flip side, because I really understand dogs, I can warn parents that the dog will be experiencing developmental changes as they grow as well, which can also be problematic for kids of different ages. So it all blends together really well. And then again, of course, I love working with kids and getting them motivated to become part of this family, right? So how do we strengthen relationships between the kids and the dog? How do we help the parents feel less guilty about who's getting their time and energy? Because as a parent, I mean, I'm going to speak for myself, and I know you and I talked about this before. A lot of parents really can relate that they feel guilty for one reason or another. Number one, it's because they miss their kids because their dog is too hard and the dog takes too much of their time and energy. Or they really feel guilty because they're neglecting their first baby, which was their dog, and they're focusing all on their new human baby, and they feel terrible because the dog is being neglected. So I have a lot of programs where I can support them on both ends of those spectrums.
That is so awesome. Sorry, that. You know, you may have really made me think of so many things in there. That's so awesome, especially relating with children, though. I just really feel that it's true. You know, children can be, we help our children stay safe in our environment and teach them how to be in the environment. And I know I've really felt this strongly for a while, that that's exactly what we have to do with dogs, is help them to be safe. The kitchen, I guess, metaphor would be just a great, that's a great example of how safe
it really
and how conscious.
Yeah, it really is a good analogy, because I think as parents, we instinctively teach our kids how to cross the street, and we teach our kids how to brush their teeth and keep their teeth safe. We teach them how not to touch the hot stove or how not to get cut by a knife. We teach them how to swim. Every parent signs their kids up for swim lessons if you're privileged enough to be able to do that. But yet those same parents who do all of the things to keep their dog safe in the world don't maybe understand dog body language, or don't know how to prepare their kids to be safe around dogs. And I would really love to make it normal. I would like people to know that dog and child specialists exist, so that being safe around dogs, not just your dog, but other dogs too, is a normal part of growing up, the same way that swim lessons, or even when you're expecting, if you're seeing a doctor for prenatal visits, or when you register for a baby shower, these are all things that are normal that happen. And I think that preparing your dog for new baby, or teaching your children how to be around dogs, should also be normal in that same way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, you made me think of something else, reminded me of another example that I remember learning from very quickly. Many years ago. Well, my son is 25 and I remember that we had a dog. He was my first dog that I had on my own. We, got married, and it was the first one that I had in my home on my own, and he was great. But when we had when I had my son, it changed. Like, I remember we used to get excited and say, when somebody came to the door, who's here, right? So we created this behavior in him. And then I came home with my son, and it was like, shh, be quiet. And you're just like, I can't even imagine how confused the poor dog was, you know,
Yeah.
and that's just one example. Like I know I mentioned before that there's so many things that we don't even see dogs do. Like you don't even know, you're so busy with your kid all day that you didn't even realize where your dog was for the whole day. You know, it's just doing its life.
Well, that's lucky. I mean, I have so many clients who have to micromanage where their dog is all day. But on the other hand, there are people who are unaware of what the dog is doing. And I think the biggest problem is when parents inadvertently are preventing their dogs from being dogs, right? We're saying, you know, I'm going to take a dog that was bred to do a job like a border collie, and I'm going to put it in a crate because I can't worry about X, Y, and Z. And that's such an unfair way for that poor dog to live, because the dog is it's expressing who its genetic identity is asking it to be. And we can add behaviors and we can add enrichment so that that dog can have a really good life, even though it lives in a house with kids that it wants to chase around because it wants to herd them. But we need to help parents understand that there are a variety of things that they can do to prepare that dog for a new family member, or to change the expressions of those behavior to make them more appropriate when the kids are around, or when there are play dates and the kids are running like wild creatures in the backyard. You know, then we need to change our expectations of what the dog can be doing at that time, so that, and we also have to be really careful not to create children who are afraid of dogs, right? Because even if our own children are comfortable around our own pet dog, it doesn't mean that their friends who come over are. And we have to be really respectful as parents to those kids. And I really think parents should be communicating with each other. Like, before your kid goes to someone else's house, do you have a dog? Is your dog used to being around kids? Where is your dog going to be during the kids' play date? Are they going to be loose? Are you going to be watching? Like, it's almost, and I know this is going to sound totally dramatic, so please don't take this the wrong way, but like, I almost feel like parents should talk to other parents who have dogs the same way you would ask somebody if they have a loaded gun in the house. Like, are there weapons that are available? Like, do you have child locks on your medicine cabinets? Like, there's just certain things that, from a self-preservation standpoint, having a mature parent-to-parent conversation would prevent a lot of issues. Yeah, I'm just now starting to work with some children on overcoming their fear of dogs as well. This is a new thing for me, and I'm really excited about that. You know, little kids starting, you know, around the age of 4, often have fear of dogs that either can come from a bad experience, or they can come from stories they absorb from their environment. You know, we have to remember that our kids are watching. They're watching everything we do. If we're talking about something that happened to us that was traumatic, our kids are taking that in. If we are hugging and kissing our dog in the face, our kids are taking that in, and that may get them bitten down the line, you know. And even if your dog won't bite them, someone else's dog will, if they try those shenanigans with a stranger dog. So there's so much work. There's so much work that needs to be done. And I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you and to talk to whoever's watching, because I think that there's so many parents who live every day just like, oh my God, like, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know if I can keep my dog. It's just one more thing for me to manage. Or I feel so guilty. Like, I'm a terrible person. You know, and I see people like today, somebody came to me for advice about whether she has a 6-month-old baby and a toddler, and is now a good time to get a puppy? And I'm like, no, it's really not a good time. I really wish you'd wait till your kids were like 4. That would be a great time. But I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying you better go in with your eyes wide open, and you better have my email ready at the go to book an appointment, or to join my membership. Really, I think the membership for ongoing support is really what you're going to need, because then I'll help you with real life issues, right? We'll talk about play dates. We're going to actually do that this month, for example. Inside my membership, we're devoting the month to play dates, because where I live in the States, 50% of Americans are vaccinated now. More and more are getting vaccinated all the time. Families are trying to now have play dates again, and our lives are slowly ramping back up to normal. And so a lot of dogs are going to kind of be surprised by this new development of having people show up at their homes. And so, we're going to look at safe interactions and manners and how do we deal with visitors and what are behaviors that our dogs should do? How do we get our dogs to do those things, right? It's a lot of parent coaching, but it's also a lot of management, training, family bonding activities and things. So it's nice, I think, for people to know that they have somebody they can go to, somebody who they feel safe with, because I'm not going to judge them, but I will be honest with them. I had an appointment this morning before I met with you, and the woman, Tiffany, she's so cute. She's got this gorgeous Doberman puppy. He's probably 4 or 5 months old now. He's like, oh, he's amazing. And she has a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old baby. So the puppy and the baby are pretty much the same age. And she's like, Michelle, I am so overwhelmed. And the puppy can now jump out of the pen. And so we had a really good conversation though. And she's like, I know I can trust you because you're going to be honest with me. She said, can I do this? And I was like, yeah, he is a good dog. Like I have seen this dog, we've had Zooms and I've seen this dog at his best and I've seen him at his worst. And there are families that I tell them, no, this dog would have a better life somewhere else. This dog is not a good fit for your family. But in this case, I think we can make it work. She's receptive and she's open and she's excited to try anything I throw at her, which I love. But she's just grateful. She's a perfect example of somebody who's like, oh my God, I'm so glad that you exist because you get me as a mom. I don't have to apologize to you every time my toddler walks in when we're having a Zoom and asks me to take him potty or whatever. Like, it's just life. And I'm used to that. I did it. I raised my own kid.
I feel like in you, the people are getting way more than a dog trainer. You're getting a lot more of a counselor. And I believe that is the best way for things to work with a dog in a family, 100%. But I just see that it's an extra gift that because of your teaching, and then being a mom, it all adds to that, and it's so important. And yeah, people, they just need a little help a lot of times to make it work and to understand what the dog, like to the body language, just learning and understanding body language and basic needs of a dog, and relating that to a child. Would be so much benefit to mothers. You said 2 things that really stuck with me there. So the first is that I just remember when my son was little, we had a really hard time. I mean, off the charts, really hard time. And I said no too much, right? I said no to him too much. I said no to my dogs too much. And I did not like myself as a mother at that point. It was terrible. And so now I can take that experience and I can try to twist it and say, all right, you guys, how can I help you say yes more than you say no, right? How can I help you not dislike yourself as a parent the way that I did when my kids were struggling when they were little, right? Because I know now what I did not know then, right? Most people don't know what they don't know. So the question is can you acknowledge that things are hard, and will you ask for help? And that's the first step. And not ask for help because your kid was bitten by the dog, because it's still workable sometimes. But before that, and that goes to the body language piece, which was the next thing you said that really struck me, which is that if we can understand how our dog is feeling before anything bad happens, then we can prevent anything bad from happening. So let me give you an example. I have a free Facebook group for parents. It's not for dog trainers. Sorry, guys. I have a special thing for dog trainers. If you want that, just message me. But for parents, it's a Facebook group called Parenting Kids and Dogs. And it's a safe place. And I've been screenshotting comments that people write. Somebody wrote yesterday, they said, I want to say this here because I know it's a safe place. And it's just like, I cry a lot, like happy cry, I'm that person. I'm that like softy. My kids make fun of me all the time. Yeah. So I'm that person. But anyway, so it's leaking awesomeness.
Oh my God, I'm a mush pot. So when people say they feel safe or they know that I will support them or whatever, that means the world to me. But people will say to me, they'll come in, they're new to the group. They don't really know that so much of what we do is based on mindset and shifting how we think about things so that we could be a better human for our dogs, right? Help our dogs be safe, physically and emotionally safe. So here's an example. So people come into the group and they say, my baby is now mobile. My dog is having a really hard time. My dog growled at the toddler. How do I stop it? How do I stop the dog from growling at the toddler? And so now it's fun is the group, we're almost at 3,000 members in there so far. And the group members pop in and they now know how to answer some of these questions. So I don't have to answer everything, but it's great. And they say, we need to prevent your dog from feeling threatened so that it doesn't need to growl. And I'm like, yeah, this is so good. So that's true, right? The truth is that growling is the last ditch effort before bite happens, right? The growling is you weren't listening to the 10 signals I already gave you of how uncomfortable I am. And so now I have to use my voice, right? So the growl is pretty much us shouting, whereas so many other signals like licking their lips or looking away or, you know, lifting a paw or whatever, those are all the little whispers that lead up, like, please go away, please back up. Pretend I'm not here. Like all of those signs amp up. And if we ignore them because we're ignorant, and I don't say ignorant in a judgy way, I just mean you just
can't
have
do
no idea
what you don't know. If you don't
right.
know it.
Right. So you can't address it if you don't know it. And your kids certainly can't address it if you as the parent don't know it because you haven't taught your kids that. Then the dog is going to growl. So now what we need to do is we need to stop and say, okay, first I have to own my kid is not perfect. Not all parents want to own that. And I'm going to ask you to. Your kid is not perfect. And your kid may be being disrespectful to the dog. Let's just talk about that, right? What did your child do? The dog didn't growl out of nowhere. Something happened. Was it because there was a balloon? The kid was playing with a balloon going pop, 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 pop. Was it because the kid had a little toy that goes beep, 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 and it got too close to the dog? Was it because the kid was running or screaming or tantruming? What happened? Something happened to make the dog uncomfortable. And if we can see that, then we have choices. Number one, we can move the kid away and say, oh my gosh, thank you for telling me with your body how you're feeling. I'm going to move this trigger, the kid, away and give you space so that you can feel less stressed out. I'm so sorry. Or we can tell the dog, hey, come here. I'm going to give you something really nice to do in this wonderful, quiet place in the house, right? We have choices. You can help the dog. You can honor your dog's feelings and say, I'm going to help you. You can trust me. I am your advocate, right? I'm going to help you feel safe. And I'm going to help your body be safe because I'm not going to let the kid pull on you, ride on you, sit on you, lean on you, do all the things that some people just dismiss and say, oh, boys will be boys. That's bull. That is not okay. That's totally inappropriate. We need to teach our kids to respect their animals.
We need to advocate and sorry. I have a heating pad here because it's cool. We have to teach them to recognize and advocate for the dog and what was the one I heard recently? Somebody, I can't remember now who it was. I've talked to so many people and had so many conversations, but to do with the dog them not wanting to tell the dog to not jump on people because they didn't want to hurt the dog's feelings. Like it's all respect. It's all both ways. It's the dog and respecting the children need to respect that they don't.
Right. Well, it goes both ways and you're not going to hurt the dog's feelings if you can praise the dog for doing an alternate behavior, right? Yeah. So if you don't want your dog to jump, you don't have to yell at the dog or hurt the dog or shove the dog off. You can say, hey, can you do a trick for me instead? Wow, you're an amazing dog. That was really great. No dog.
Like you said, changing that no's to yeses. I like that. That's a good way to say it because I love redirection, but explaining it is, and working with it is.
Every parent appreciates the opportunity not to be a nag. We don't like it. We do it. And as we're doing it, we're like, crap, I'm doing it again. You don't want to do it, but sometimes it just leaks out. And I still am guilty of it. I mean, my son is almost 19, like right around the corner, he's going to be 19. And I still nag him more than I want to. So then I channel myself and I'm like, oh my God, what can I do to say yes more? But sometimes, sometimes we're impatient and whatever, things get the better of us. We're all human. We have to acknowledge that. But
yeah, be gentle to ourselves.
That's hard. That's really hard. But that's what I will then be in your face telling you. I'll remind you.
I love your pet parenting. That's that, I do believe that. I believe that there's lots of parents with kids and animals, and they get so busy and oh yeah, it's challenging to have it all, to have all that and a home to manage and everything.
Yeah. I mean, and really the honest truth is, there are tons of resources on the internet. I mean, there's this video series, there's, tons of great videos and trainers and resources online. But at the end of the day, if you want to make progress from where you are, and if you have a destination you want to get to, you want to progress from here to there, then it's worth spending a few bucks to not have to piece together random free information from the internet. Because honestly, at the end of the day, you're not 100% sure who you can trust. And you may find, like, I have some go-to resources. Like, I have people online that no matter what, for example, Emily Larlam of Kiko Pup, I trust her no matter what, because I have watched her for years. She's never disappointed me. She's kind, she's compassionate, she's so creative. Like, I trust her, right? That's good. But yet she's not my trainer, right? So I have to piece together even her content to learn things. Sometimes it's nice to just have things delivered to you in a strategic way to help you get from point A to point B. And that's what my membership does, which is safekidsanddogs.com. I have a waiting list because it's not open right now, but safekidsanddogs.com. That's one option, right? There's lots of free other options out there too. But I think at the end of the day, if you're really struggling, like if your mental health is suffering, if you're wondering about rehoming your dog, if your dog is embarrassing you, if you're feeling guilty, those are all things that I think are worth paying a little bit for.
Yes, because as much as we're sitting here and comparing children and dogs, the difference is that it's usually the dog that will pay, and there's nothing wrong with getting help, so that your dog, so you don't even have to live with that guilt of something bad happening or having to get rid of the dog.
I love that you said that, because I really like to keep families together. I mean, you got a dog because you love dogs. You didn't get a dog because you're a bad person. And at the end of the day, if your dog makes a mistake that was preventable by reading body language or using management or whatever, the dog could be euthanized, or your child could be hurt significantly, right? Or there could be post-traumatic stress involved in whatever consequences happen. So keeping families together is so much more than keeping families together. I mean, yeah, you could have a dog that's in a pen or whatever. That's not a quality of life. I mean, loving your family, your interactions, your experiences together. Now, I want to say something though that I think is important. So I have 2 dogs, one of whom is my total adventure buddy. He's socially appropriate. He's amazing. He's portable. He's like a dream.
Portable.
The other one is not. She's 70 pounds. She's dog selective. She has done some really inappropriate things in the past. I've muzzle trained her. She doesn't get to go out in the world very much because it's too stressful for her and it's too stressful for me. And she's almost 13. So like she's slowed down. So it's not like I'm holding her back, but at the end of the day, you have to work with the dog you've got. So I don't want to delude anyone into thinking, oh, I can help any family love being with their dog all the time. I mean, you may have a really hard dog and that's okay, but I can maybe help you figure out how to give that dog its best life, right? Maybe you actually should be walking it less and giving it more options to enrich its mind at home in a safer way, so that we're not adding to anyone's stress, including yours as the human. But it is really important to look at the dog that you've got. Yes. Because not every dog will be the go to an outdoor cafe and sit outside at your feet while other people with their dogs walk by. Not every dog will be that dog. And yet everyone wants that dog. And so You can't, not every dog can go to the kids' soccer game with you and be okay with all that stimulation. And that's okay.
And I just, like on that same topic, and it's not, I think it's something I've done. So I don't want to, put people down for decisions, but people decide they want a dog and they just go get it without really thinking about, the breed or any really thinking about the whole thing. And so therefore it's, doesn't turn out to be what they thought, but it's, right. It's often workable as long as we're willing to be, and I know this is what you're saying, it's workable as long as they're willing to be flexible and to realize that maybe they're not going to be, not every dog right. wants, not everybody likes hugs, not everybody, wants to go hang out with everybody, and they're all unique.
And then the other thing is sometimes it's not workable. Sometimes you literally have a dog that doesn't fit. And I have a blog post about that I have a lot of blog posts. They're all lots of free resources on my website, Pooch Parenting. But there's one article specifically called, "Did we get the wrong dog for our family?" And it's just offers you a really fair assessment of like, what did we want and what did we get? And what if this and what if that? And talks about quality of life. And some dogs just are not the right fit for certain families, and some families are not the right fit for certain dogs. And so then it's a question of, what do we do next, right? And so I see a lot of clients who need coaching through that experience. Did I get the wrong dog for my family? And if I did, what am I going to do? What are my options? How do I handle this? How do I help the kids through that if we decide that the dog has to leave? How do I coach them through that kind of grief?
Yes.
So there's a lot. This is a very multi-layered specialty, I'm realizing,
Well, it's definitely not the just, how do I fix this barking, or how do I, right? It's not nearly as simple as what the very common requests. Like I'm really hope this kind of interview in these series lets people see that dogs are very complicated, and it's not necessarily a ton of work, but it takes conscious effort and commitment. And dogs are so want to get along and fit into our world as best as they can. Another person that did a bunch of studies on that is I did interview Dr. Julianne Kaminsky, and just fantastic studies. What we're learning and science is starting to study and find is learn more and more about dogs. Just emotions is a newer part itself. Proof that dogs do feel emotions, and it's just growing, and we're learning so much, and I love it. And this is the best way to get this out there and to help families.
Yeah. We love our dogs. We really do. And sometimes we don't like our dogs, for being honest. Like even those of us who love our dogs have days where we don't like our dogs, but it's just because like somebody was in a mood. Maybe it was me in the mood. Maybe it was the dog in a mood, and they have every right to be in one. They all have feelings and, choices and frustrations if they're not allowed to do the things they want to do. And everything is kind of a compromise. So I just really like to try to help families like juggle, how do you meet everyone's needs? And you're not going to always meet everyone's needs at every minute, right? And a lot of people don't realize how much rest their dogs need.
Yes.
And that's a huge cause of problems, actually. You can get barking and chasing the kids and all these behaviors that are so frustrating because the dog is just too tired. Sometimes that's all it takes is your dog needs more sleep. And it's like, oh, the world opens up. The dog is like civilized again, and all is good in the world. So
it's true. Yeah. They don't always need, there's always people that don't feel or whatever, don't do quite enough. And then there's those that, like you mentioned already, do too much. And I find like it's actually really interesting because people have the best hearts and mean the best for their dog, but dogs love to just be with you. They don't have to be doing tricks all the time. They don't have to be, they'll follow you happily, and they just want to be, and they'll lay down when they're comfortable. They'll get that rest. It's so interesting that you say that, because it feels like an overtired child. Right.
It is. And well, and I'm living that right now. So mine is asleep at the moment, but my little guy, he's 20 months old right now. And I'm trying to track without writing it down, but I'm trying to track his barking. And he barks more when he's tired or when he's overstimulated, or if he hasn't had like a good amount of exercise or whatever. So it can be any number of things. And so on evenings, it's often in the evening times where he's like barking at little things. I'm like, oh, he didn't get enough sleep today or whatever. And in a household where you've got kids running around and a lot of action and a lot of noise, for some dogs, it's really hard to self-soothe. So it's just something to think about, you know, that it can be very difficult for some dogs to calm down when there is so much activity. It's not as simple as the dog should just sleep when it needs to, because they don't want to, they have FOMO. They don't want to miss out, right? A lot of dogs are like, I'm going to stay awake. I'm going to try to stay awake and keep my eyes open because I don't want to miss out on any of the fun. But really, at the end of the day, we have to help them. We have to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to set up the environment so that we can all take some chill time. You know,
and you just made me also think too that it's important to make sure the dog has, in a household that is that busy, has somewhere that they can go to get away from everything if they need to separate themselves, because dogs can learn that quite quickly. Right? They can learn that hey, I've had enough of this noise right now and I need to get away, and to know that they'll be able to have that. Like, it's to have the respect and for the dog, and to advocate that they need that sometimes too. I have one that is totally like that, right? And the boys get going, she's just like, I'm out of here. And so she's got places that she can go and just be left alone. And it's so interesting, you know, and they are so different. Every dog, every family is unique. Experience. It's really exciting. It's exciting for dogs to be. This is an exciting time for them. That's one thing that keeps coming up. It's just getting so much better. Uh-oh, I lost you.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I was, low battery. Sorry.
Uh-oh, that's okay. I think we're actually done great here. Right? Yeah, time-wise, we've done great. I'll finish this up and stop recording. But thank you so much, Michelle. I can't wait. I hope people are going to check you out and believe in the possibilities of their dog and their family.
Yeah, and help exists for families. Right, you know, there are people out there. You can find me at poochparenting.net. Yeah, wherever here.
Where are you?
Yeah.
How come it doesn't work?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, you can find me poochparenting.net. There's a ton of free resources, including links to my podcast, which, you know, I've interviewed parenting and dog specialists. So it's really great to kind of address both ends of the leash when you're a family. And then I have, you know, my membership and some other online classes if you're interested in those kinds of things too.
No, I highly recommend people should even, you know, start with listening to your podcast if they're not sure, because it's so easy
you'll get to know me.
It's just easy to put your phone on and to just listen. And when you get those nuggets of gold, that little light bulbs go on with your relationship or what's happening with your dog, it's priceless.
Exactly.
It's
Thank
priceless.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jodie.